How's it going, guys? This is Charles Salbox. Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we are going to be touching on the backhand. Now, obviously in a previous video, I did the jab. So we need to do the follow-up and get the backhand rolling. Let's get it. Okay guys, so we're going to be touching on the backhand. Now, the backhand has a purpose and it has problems associated with its usage. So I'm just going to touch on some of the purposes of the backhand. So the first reason why you might want to use the backhand is to provide a follow-up punch to the jab that is slightly more punishing and powerful. So to set the first type of combination that you can use with the jab, so a 1-2. The second reason why you might want to use the backhand is to attack and maintain range with the backhand. Obviously, when you're throwing any other punch other than the jab or the backhand, it leaves you at short distance. So when you're firing off the backhand, it will preserve the distance. The last reason why you might want to use the backhand is to counter at range. Obviously, if you are in a situation where your opponent is approaching you, but you still want to attack, but then still not be at short distance, is to use the backhand as a counter punch. Okay guys, so let's touch on some of the problems associated with the usage of the backhand. Now, because the backhand is a power punch, it's quite often that the alignment of the punch will be incorrect if the boxer focuses on the force and the thrust of the punch as opposed to the technique. And this will result in the boxer hitting the target with the wrong part of the fist, often resulting in the referee calling for a slap. So the second problem with the backhand is normally the starting point. If the boxer has a lowered position and when he decides to throw, so this would be more so with the boxing stance, he's often going to be inaccurate. So if I'm throwing the punch from this position and sometimes from this position, that will affect my accuracy. Now, the third problem with the backhand is the fact that the boxer might not rotate his body, and this will reduce the power in the punch. The fourth problem associated with the backhand is the fact that when the backhand is thrown at range, it's often that the foot is not correctly moved to accommodate for that punch. If you move your lead hand and your lead foot, and then you want to use your backhand, you have to use movement in your rear foot. Now, the fifth problem with the backhand is often that the boxer will try to throw this out of range. Now, sometimes when a boxer can see red mist, i.e. anger, he wants to land, and the priority to land obviously is something that affects the boxer and doesn't allow him to judge distance correctly. So this is why we normally set up the backhand with the jab or at least a feint or step off. So range, incorrect range from which the backhand is being thrown. Okay guys, so the first thing that we are going to be doing now is the technique. So with the backhand, obviously it's a power punch, and where we have the stance, it assumes that also, because the backhand is all the way at the back, hence the backhand. It should be the case that if you have no setup for the backhand, your opponent should be able to successfully defend himself against any attempt at when you are trying to throw without the setup. So that means without the jab and without any feints, without any misdirection. So a plain backhand, your opponent should be able to defend against it. But in a lot of cases, they're switched off, so they still get hit. But we always want to assume that our opponent is working optimally. Now, let's start with the boxing stance. So, as you can see, my lead foot in between 12 and 1. The front toe aligns with the back heel. And then straight after that, my rear foot is in between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock. I raise the heel at the back, so I've bent my knees here. I lower my hips by bending my knee here. Then I rotate. My shoulder comes towards the center line a lot more. And then my elbow is projecting straight down. My lead wrist and knuckle, obviously you can see there's a slight angle there. That's directly in front of my face. I lower my head and I'm at this point here. Now my backhand has a slight curve there also, because when I throw it, I want to make sure that I'm landing on the knuckles. And then the elbow is fixed on my torso. So this is the boxing stance from which I'm going to work from. Now, the last iteration that we want is the weight transfer. So I want to bring my body back towards my rear foot. So I've got more of a 60-40 balance. I've gone through this a lot on video, so you know, I'm sure you guys know what I'm doing. Now, with the backhand, what we want to do is use our line of sight here with the lead hand. Often the lead hand will touch first, and then we want to make sure that when we throw the backhand, I'm just going to drop my lead hand. I'm rotating from the back foot, my knee comes forward, my hip comes forward, and my shoulder comes forward. I don't throw immediately, and then what happens when I approach the center line, I'm throwing like that, okay? I'm just going to show you this from the side. So in this position, boom, okay? You can see the rotation in my back foot. My hip is in front of my left hip, so my right hip, in front of my left hip. My right shoulder is in front of my left shoulder. And you can see the alignment there, a slight bend in the wrist. And this is the form that I'm looking for on the backhand. Now you can see my head is in the same position. I do not bring my head forward for the backhand. This is what I was talking about, where the boxer translates his body into the punch instead of rotating his body. So we're rotating like this, okay? This is something that you can do with the stick. So you can get the stick here on your shoulders, and then when you rotate, you want to get this end of the stick to point directly in front of you. Okay, so that is generally the technique. I'm just going to do this in a bit more speed. So from the side, you can see, I'm just going to do this from the side, so I'm not going to move my feet. There. Okay, from the side here. From the front. And that is the general technique for the backhand. Okay guys, so now that we have understood the technique relating to the backhand, I want to take you through some of the more tactical usages. So let's say we're in the stationary position. That serves the purpose of what we now know for the backhand. So when our boxer's at range, let's say we take a step to the side, pa. Take a step to the side, pa. We know how to throw the stationary jab. Now let's move forward. Let's say we take a jab, boom. So we've got the footwork for the jab. When we throw the backhand, ta, okay, just like that. Now a 1-2 is that combination. So I'll do that from the side, ta, ta, okay. Now if we are doing a 1 and then a 2, it follows that we have to take 4 steps. So this is when our opponent is trying to retreat, when he understands that we're trying to throw the 1. So what we do, we split the 1 and the 2 into their own footwork phases. So we do 1 step, 2, okay? That allows us to cover more distance. So, pa, pa, okay? From the side, ta, ta. From the front, ta, ta. And that allows us to maintain the distance, keep up with a retreating opponent, and land the backhand successfully. Okay guys, now when we are considering how we use the backhand moving to the right, we have to understand that this can occur against a southpaw and an orthodox boxer. We want to focus more of our training against the orthodox boxer. So the setup for that would be where we throw the jab, pa, short range jab. As soon as we retract the lead hand, we want to step over to the side. So ta, okay, because what we expect there is the jab from our opponent to come back. And then when we see that we've evaded that jab, what we do is come back with the backhand. But the backhand is thrown as the lead foot steps over. So, pa, okay? So again, we throw the jab as a rangefinder, we step over, then we throw the cross. So, ta, ta, from the side, ta, ta, from the side here, ta, ta, okay? And that allows us to almost attack at range when we step over. Obviously, if you take a diagonal step, you're cutting it into the distance. Now, against a southpaw opponent, we want to throw the backhand when the southpaw throws his backhand. So normally we would expect a 1-2. So what we do, we catch the jab from the southpaw, catch, and then when the backhand comes, we step through, boom, and then we throw the backhand at range, pa, okay? So remember, we catch the jab, step through as we retract our hand, and then throw the backhand. So, ta, pa, from the side, ta, pa, from the side, ta, pa. And that is how we throw the backhand going to the right against the southpaw and an orthodox opponent. Okay guys, so when we are going to the left, we want to consider more so the southpaw opponent. We can do this against the orthodox opponent, but it requires more timing, and it's when the backhand is coming. So against the southpaw opponent, what we're doing, we're stepping to the left with the jab, ta, and then if they catch our jab, throw their jab over, we slip, and then we throw the right hand straight down the center. Pa, okay? So follow, ta, pa, from the side, ta, pa, from this side, ta, pa, okay? Now we leave our head central because when we throw that jab and we step over, our head remains central. We give the southpaw opponent a target to look for, but we know we're exiting. That's why we've taken the left foot step out to the side. When the jab comes, we slip, and then we throw our cross straight down the center. Okay guys, so that's how we throw the backhand, moving to the left against the southpaw opponent. Okay guys, so the last thing that I want to touch on is moving backwards with the backhand. Now, you can do that in two ways. So the first way is where we resist the aggression of our opponent. So let's say we're in the situation where our opponent is being aggressive. So what we do, we step back with the jab, ba, that gives us distance, and we are keeping our opponent there. But if the aggression is too much, we step back with the lead foot, and then we throw the cross, pa, okay? Now you can see that my head hasn't come forward, my back foot is rotated, my hip and my shoulders are in this position. So I'll do that again, from the side, ta, ta, from the side, ta, ta, from the front, ta, ta. And that is how we resist the aggression. Now let's say that if we want to counterattack our opponent, what we can do, we can step forward to encourage their movement so we know when our opponent is going to come forward. So we throw the counterattack jab, that's a step, and then come back. And then when we come back to this position, ta, ta, what we do, we push back with the lead foot because we want speed, and then that drives the hip back, our foot goes back, and then we bring the right shoulder forward. Pa, okay? So from here, ta, ta. From here, ta, ta. From the front, ta, ta. And that is how you throw the backhand in a counterattack situation, moving backwards. Okay guys, so we've come to the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed the content and all the details relating to the backhand. Let me know in the comments if you think I've missed out on something. If you've enjoyed the video, hit that like button. Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Peace.